Re-Zero, Volume 4, Chapter 4, Part 3. The Candidates for the Throne and Their Knights. Without hesitation, Pricilla cut through the disquiet governing the chamber with a thoroughly wearied voice.
Such boring, insignificant jeers. I'm so accustomed to them that they do not even serve as a lullaby.
She was no doubt referring to the reaction around her moments earlier, including boisterous jeers that called her the bloody bride. Pricilla did not let it bother her, nor did she make any attempt to refute them. Following Priscilla's statement, Miklatov interrupted inquisitively. This had been on my mind since well before. Burial. As in Mr. Lip Burial? Now that I think of it, I have not seen any sign of Mr. Lip. Where is he?
That lewd old man suddenly went senile half a year ago. He remained unable to tell the difference between dream and reality, and passed away but a few days later.
What? Mr. Lip as... Lady Pricilla, what does that make your relationship to Mr. Lip? With Miklatov expressing surprise, Pricilla dully commented on the death of her partner.
I suppose it makes me a widow. He had not touched me with so much of a fingertip, so our relationship is, quite literally, in name alone.
Al promptly stated, Princess, isn't it just a little too harsh to put it that way? Pricilla paid him no heed, sweeping her gaze across the crowd as if daring anyone else to complain.
A meaningless death to end a worthless life. If the death of that old man had any meaning whatsoever, it is in the fact he transferred his entire estate to me. Accordingly, the house of Burial is mine.
Her stare only increased the discontent in the hall, but no one actually lodged an objection. Even Rickert, having protested against Krusch with such vehemence, apparently lacked the courage to enter a war of words with an opponent immune to logic. And so, Miklatov replied, I understand, then. As Mr. Lip was an acquaintance of many years, I regret to hear of his passing. But I see that your claim is on firm ground, Lady Pricilla.
But of course.
As Pricilla arrogantly nodded, Miklatov now shifted the conversation to the vassal at her side. No, I would like to press for further details. Does the knight beside you have anything to add? Me? Al's yawning reply did a splendid job of drawing the antagonism all around him. It was as if the servant was cooling off the heat that his master had brought to the hall. Yes, you. Your attire is highly unusual. I have not seen you among the knights of the Royal Guard. And your helm? Oh, you can tell? This was made in Wallachia down south. It was a lot of trouble getting it out of there. It's tough, so it's held up for a long while. Also, it looks cool, so it's pretty important. Wallachia Empire? Then you are not assigned to the Knights of the Royal Guard. I've cut all my connections to Wallachia. Now I'm a wanderer who goes with the flow. So please, just call me Al. Also, you seem a little upset that I'm not showing you my face. Can you give me a break on that? Al's profusion of rude statements drew even sharper glares. Under so much attention, Al deftly slipped his one hand under the chin of his helmet and began to lift it up. Ugh! Out of the blue, Someone let out a pained cry as the helm rose to about mouth level. It was hard to blame him for that. After all, the visible part of Al's face was blanketed with old scars from burns, cuts, and perhaps other sources still. It was no exaggeration to say his scars were 10 times as bad as Subaru's. So, you see, my face is a sorry sight. That's why I hope you permit me the discourtesy of keeping my face covered in front of everyone. Marcus interrupted. This may be an even greater discourtesy. If you hail from Wallachia with such wounds, were you a sword slave by any chance? Heh. That's the captain of the knights for you. That empire likes to keep its secrets, but apparently you know a thing or two about the darker parts of it. Yes, I was a sword slave, a 10-odd years vet at that. Murmurs spread across the chamber once again as the term sword slave was repeated on the lips of many a knight. From the words forming the compound, it seemed to mean a sword-wielding slave. I take it that you were in a battle or two then? That's the size of it, bro. I messed up when I was young and lost an arm that way, you see? Al, ever playing the fool, didn't flinch from discussing the gruesome experience. For their part, those who had gazed upon him with such hostility moments before were now dumbstruck. But Subaru was shaken by the impact even more than the rest. Back in the dragon carriage, Al hadn't said much about his own body. He downplayed the cause of losing his other arm and dodged the subject of his helmet altogether. But Subaru had been subconsciously avoiding that subject, too. After all, just like him, Al had been summoned there from another world. In other words, his experiences hit Subaru very close to home. Losing an arm, having his face scarred up to the point he couldn't show it to anyone else. That was a future Subaru, with countless scars already carved into his body, could easily have encountered for himself. If the icy chill running up his spine was any indication, Subaru would never have been able to endure it. Miklatov spoke again. Hailing from the Empire of Wallachia. Is that why you came to stand at Lady Pricilla's side?
Pricilla replied, Not at all. It is the result of a little game of mine. From the beginning, my becoming king was as good as divine providence. The result will be the same regardless of my vassal. And so, I am free to select the vassal that I like. As a showpiece, this man is sufficiently amusing, and then some.
How did you come to select him, then?
What, you want to know? I caught sight of him in a bodybuilding contest I held on my estate, with the winner to be offered the job of my vassal. It was an amusing sight.
Pricilla gave Al a glance rich in meaning as she replied to Miklatov. I see. So he was the winner of that contest I taught. Al corrected him. Nah, I didn't win it. Life's not kind enough for a one-armed guy to beat a pack of beefy bodybuilders. I was lucky to round out the top 5 at the victory ceremony. Miklatov's face registered surprise that Al would interrupt even him. My word. Then how did you become Lady Pricilla's vassal? Pricilla straightened with pride. She gave Al's back a hard slap.
I told you. I am free to pick whomever I please.
Al yelped a loud, dry, "Ah!" audible to all as she continued.
To begin with, My keen eyes allowed me to discern that he is a physical wonder, far more than a collection of dim-witted louts overconfident in their muscle-bound arms. And more than that, only he boasted an escape from Wallachia and a birth beyond the great waterfalls. Pricilla briskly concluded her tale, loudly stomping with a high heel as all eyes fell upon her. And so I selected Al to be my vassal. It is providence that my selection of Al and my path to become king shall both shine in accordance with my glory. She did not bear even the smallest molecule of doubt or hesitation. She was so full of confidence, it was frightening.
You say that heaven has chosen you?
But of course. After all, nothing happens in this world that does not benefit me. Furthermore, 'tis I who is worthy of becoming king, and no other. You need only bow before me and serve.
Everyone was agape at her insolent declaration. The only one unaffected by her haughtiness was the man who called this girl his master. Princess, what is your basis for all that?
'Tis very simple. Serving me means siding with the winner. You may have anything you desire. I allow it. But I shall not permit you to serve anyone else. That is all.
Pricilla brushed her orange hair back, raising her hand in a lofty wave toward the heavens. It was a gesture that meant, I have said all there is to say. With that, she turned her back to the council of elders on the dais and walked away. Before turning his back to follow, her knight looked up at the dais and said, You might not like how she says it, but Princess is on the money. If she wants something, so long as she doesn't change her mind, she gets it. That's because the heavens themselves have chosen Pricilla. I'm sure you've heard how the Mr. Limp's lands have bounced back lately. Al sent a meaningful look in Marcus's direction. We have already confirmed this for ourselves. Following the passing of Mr. Lip Burial, Lady Pricilla took control of policy within his lands, resulting in the region's unprecedented prosperity. Well, don't mistake that as us working hard for the sake of everyone else or something, okay? Princess's guesses are always on the mark like she's a natural. She's just right about everything. No ifs, ands, or buts. Well, if you're under, Princess, you can do whatever you want. If you're gonna bet on the winning horse, I think it's best to do it sooner rather than later, though. It was as if both master and servant, so full of confidence, had forgotten their humility back in their mother's wombs. When they returned to their place among the candidates, the tension in the air relaxed as a matter of course. A cross-dressing guy and a pretty girl combo, a rich widow and a guy from another world. This is totally genre-breaking stuff here. As Subaru murmured, the royal selection ceremony continued on. The next person called by Marcus was the girl with violet hair. Next, then, is Lady Anastasia and her knight, Sir Julius Juculius. Come forward. The girl reacted elegantly, but Pricilla had left vestiges of feverish agitation hovering over the chamber. That was when Julius lifted a hand up to the sky and swung it downward. The dry crackle echoed, forcing an inescapable change in the atmosphere. To this generous deed, Anastasia said, "Thank you kindly," smiling pleasantly as she advanced. Julius stood at her side. Thus, the most conventional-looking master and servant, advanced to the fore. Faced with the next royal candidate, Subaru cleared his thoughts and focused ahead once more. Anastasia smiled warmly.
If y'all expect me to be as intense as those last two, I'm in a bit of a bind. I doubt you'd want me to come on too strong, so I guess my gimmick is that I don't have one.
Her demeanor and pleasant smile relaxed some of the tension in the room.
Now then, I, Anastasia Hoshin, will speak for a spell. I hope you'll forgive my indiscretion, since I'm an outsider and all.
Julius stroked the front of his hair in an unnecessarily polished motion to draw attention to himself. I am Lady Anastasia's knight, Julius Jaculius. Please be gentle with her. Subaru finally reasoned that the talk about her gimmick was a high-level joke. But what he couldn't get out of his head was the contrast of Anastasia's accent. Apparently, Subaru wasn't the only one who noticed, as Miklatov asked, "With that particular accent, are you a native of Kararagi, then?"
Exactly. I was born in Kararagi to the lowest class in the League of Free Trading Cities.
Miklatov's eyes narrowed slightly at that. Lowest class. Then, what's your connection to Lagunica? If the lowest class meant the same thing there that it did in Lagunica, Anastasia was born a commoner. Depending on the meaning of the term, it could imply something even lower.
I was born in the lowest class, but now I have a right proper mansion in the city. I have stories in a host of other cities. That's how I first imposed on Lagunica.
Julius added. She serves as chairwoman of the Hoshin Company, the most influential company in Kararagi. For many years, this position in her nation was occupied by the Lushika Industrial Company, but thanks to Lady Anastasia's personal commercial genius, it was reconstituted under a new name, the Hoshin Company. Standing beside Julius, Anastasia's eyebrows peaked, as if she were a little embarrassed. If Julius's declaration could be taken as fact, Anastasia's pronouncement had been humble in the extreme about her exploits. Julius continued. Accompanying its vast expansion across Kararagi, there was talk of expansion into Lagunica as well. That was the impetus for my meeting Lady Anastasia for the first time. Miklatov replied. So, in spite of being born to humble beginnings, she established herself as a brilliant young merchant. I must say, this reminds me of the tales of the founder of Kararagi itself. As Miklatov's lips bent into a smile, Anastasia clapped her hands together, and her eyes sparkled.
Yes, exactly. I always looked up to that man, Hoshin of the Wastes. When the time came to establish my family name as a merchant, I decided to adopt the name Hoshin in his honor.
Miklatov praised Anastasia's spirit. Hoshin is the name of a great man known across the entire continent, revered from ancient times to the present. To name yourself after him, I see, a splendid display of spirit. Even Subaru had heard of Hoshin of the Wastes. If he recalled correctly, the man was the main character in one of the ballads sung on that world. Anastasia continued.
One of the great things about Kararagi is how it gave a gal like me a fair shot. It turns out I have a real knack for sniffing out the scent of gold, and it's fun too. Subaru saw that these statements were creating a considerable stir all around. Judging from appearances alone, Anastasia was younger than he was. Given her age and the reaction around him, she apparently had a reputation as a monster in the business world. Julius remarked, "Lady Anastasia's commercial genius is a divine gift. It is no exaggeration that she rivals Ho Shin himself. My own lack of ability in this area leaves me envious of her." Julius's rhetorical flourish drew a generous nod from Miklatov.
My, she must be quite something indeed for the finest of knights to boast of her so.
But Subaru, unable to accept that last sentence, asked the man beside him, "Did I hear wrong? Did he just call him the finest of knights?" Reinhardt replied to Subaru's question matter-of-factly. "That is what they call him. Among the knights of the royal guard of the kingdom of Lagunica, Julius is second only to Marcus, captain of the guard. There is a vice-captain, but it is a ceremonial position that exists in name only, so it's best to think of it as vacant. In skill with the sword, employment of mana, pedigree, and exploits, Julius fulfills all the qualifications of a knight and is second to none. He is, without question, worthy of being called the finest of knights." But when people in the capital talk about the knight among knights, they're talking about you, right? You're really well known, plus you never denied it, right? The qualifications for that nickname are somewhat different. Certainly, in terms of strength with the sword alone, I'm stronger than Julius. I have yet to meet someone stronger than I am. Just like that, he declared he was mightiest of all. Subaru wasn't sure how to respond to that, but Reinhardt wasn't boasting. If anything, his eyes were filled with envy, his lips pursed taut. The way Reinhardt looked cornered left Subaru wondering what to do, but faster than he could say anything, the debate proceeded with something that could not be ignored. Miklatov said,
"It is plain that relations between master and servant are very good. Lady Anastasia, there's something I wish to ask you. You are a native of Kararagi. What is your purpose in seeking to be king?"
"Ah, so my birthplace really bothers you, doesn't it?" It was a natural subject to raise. Nations existed in this world, too, meaning that borders existed between states and peoples. Subaru didn't know how high the barriers were, but even in a state of emergency, the throne of your own kingdom was not something to hand to a visitor from another nation lightly. The entire chamber held its breath as Anastasia, surrounded by the tension, smiled wryly. "Y'all have such high expectations. It's making me nervous. Unfortunately, I don't have any high ideals like Miss Crush or Miss Priscilla's confidence that she's been chosen for greatness."
Surely you are not saying the Dragon Jewel responded to you purely by chance?
Faced with Miklatov's question, Anastasia stuck her tongue out and replied casually, "If it was like that, even I wouldn't show my face here. Of course I've got a goal of my own. You see, I'm actually really greedy." The declaration, so at odds with what was expected, made most present doubt their ears. "I think I've been greedier than normal since I was teeny tiny. The reason I became a first-rate merchant with a nose for gold is because I want it more than everyone else."
You want it more?
As a maid at the first little company I worked for, I made a couple of suggestions to the owner, and they were big hits. So I got involved in bigger and bigger deals, and soon I was living so large I forgot what it was like to be low class. It should have been fun, but I found out I wasn't free. I was even less free than before. Anastasia, counting on her fingers the steps she had climbed, shook her head. And why is that? Miklatov asked. That's the scary part about greed. The more you get your hands on, the more you want to get your hands on. I want this, I want that. It's not enough. It's never enough. And that's when I realized it. Anastasia grinned as she pointed toward her feet. It was clear what she was indicating. The palace itself. I'm greedy, so I want anything around. But I'm not satisfied yet. I don't know what real fulfillment feels like. So I want a country of my own.
You are saying you want this kingdom to weigh your greed?
Anastasia responded to Miklatov's rebuke with a robust smile. Hey, if it smashes my scale to bits, smash away. I'll be real happy to have my fill and be totally satisfied. In other words, she was announcing that she sought the royal throne out of her own avarice. But if getting my hands on the kingdom isn't enough, I'll probably use this country as a stepping stone to get even more.
And what shall become of the kingdom if you obtain it, yet it holds no value for you?
I told you, didn't I? I'm greedy. So once something's mine, it's mine through thick and thin. And if I get an even stronger hankering, I use whatever I have to satisfy it. My life in Kararagi, the Hoshin Company, and all the people who work there, they're all part of my drive for fulfillment. I would never throw them away. So... Anastasia swept her gaze over the faces of everyone in the chamber. How about you just relax and become mine? She looked across the chamber with the same warm, gentle smile she had initially worn. Her way of thinking was founded on desire, but that made her argument very simple. She wanted the throne for her own desires, and from the day it was hers, she'd worked tirelessly for the prosperity of the kingdom. She wouldn't throw it away, given that her personality demanded she make anything she owned into something greater and grander than before. That was her message.
Lady Anastasia has surely pressed her claim sufficiently. Do you have anything to add, Sir Julius?
With his master's speech concluded, it was time for the vassal to make his case. Both had argued beforehand about the master's fitness to be king, but Julius stepped in front and indicated Anastasia with his hand as he said, Lady Anastasia used the word greed to express her desires, but put another way, this reveals the depth of emotion behind her ambition. On the other hand, from a business point of view, she is able to make any decision without emotional involvement, an indispensable quality in a statesman.
Certainly, it is as you say.
Furthermore, as I stated earlier, Lady Anastasia is a brilliant businesswoman, something this kingdom desperately needs at this hour. Repeated serious clashes with neighboring nations, in particular, skirmishes with the Empire, have drained our coffers. With the large famine last year, the finances of the kingdom of Lagunica are in a precarious state. Faces went red as Julius abruptly touched upon the nation's dirty laundry.
I believe such details ought not to be so lightly divulged in a public place, Sir Julius.
The importance of financial reconstruction to the nation has been common knowledge for several decades now. I do not feel any reason to hide this from those assembled here. Do you not think that the very reason the affairs of the nation have stagnated is because we have averted our eyes from this difficult financial state for so long? So a mere knight speaks to us about political affairs beyond his purview? That's right. These affairs will affect the house of Jaculius very little. Even if we avert our eyes, it will surely be nothing irreversible for my generation. However, even if my house will emerge unscathed, I cannot ignore the matter of the throne I serve falling into distress. With veins bulging from the foreheads of the Council of Elders, Julius looked back at Anastasia. However, the Hoshin Company has connected us to the extreme prosperity enjoyed in Kararagi, bringing a fresh wind to Lagunica. I have seen for myself that Lady Anastasia is worthy to be king if we continue along this path. What can you call this, if not fate? Perhaps Julius had been overcome by fervor, for his tenor rose and his words quickened. If heaven chooses the king, then it has chosen Lady Anastasia. I, devoted to the royal family, have pledged my loyalty to the kingdom, hereby declare that Lady Anastasia is worthy of the throne. I thank you for lending me your ears. Julius behaved much like a stage performer as he summarized his address for the audience. Those attending, mesmerized by his aura, seemed to come to their senses as they looked back upon master and vassal. Yet, even then, Marcus's calm expression did not waver. Sir Julius, may I judge this sufficient? Julius, probably accustomed to the attitude of a superior officer, stated, "Yes, thank you very much," and returned to Anastasia's side. You were splendid, Lady Anastasia. It is indeed a place such as this where your flower may truly bloom. Yes, you are very kind. Sheesh, you didn't need to say that. It's so embarrassing. A red-faced Anastasia fanned herself with a hand as she returned with Julius to the other candidates. Now that the third candidate's camp had asserted its claim, next in line was... After a brief silence, Marcus called the name of the silver-haired girl who had kept her silence to that point. Then, the next candidate, Lady Amelia. She was the only candidate lacking a knight of her own. After her name was called, she raised her head. From the side, Subaru could see worry on her pale, beautiful face, but with a look of strong determination, Amelia replied, "Yes." She stepped forward. Her part in the royal selection had now begun. That was when Subaru Natsuki had a thought.